All right, good people. How you doing on today? I am James Barr Judah. This is Shed Some Light. Today we are going to be talking about your Sixth Amendment and your constitutional rights. All right, is it being upheld in the courtroom? Well, let's go ahead and find out. All right, let's go ahead and transition into what we're going to be viewing today. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I more than appreciate you. Let's get into it.
Plea bargaining is the process by which a criminal defendant charged with a crime, or multiple crimes, agrees to waive his or her constitutional right to a jury trial.
A criminal defendant is given an opportunity to plead guilty to a lesser charge in exchange for the prosecutor not bringing the higher charge. So a person who is charged perhaps with murder might plead down to a manslaughter charge instead. In exchange for that, the prosecutor chooses not to hold a full trial.
The public has this image of jury trials as making up bulk of our criminal adjudications based on what they see in TV and in movies, and that is a vanishingly small part of our criminal justice system. This is a relatively recent process. This was absolutely unknown at the time of the founding. The Constitution makes no mention of plea bargaining whatsoever. The presumption, both historically and in the text of our Constitution, is that all criminal trials would be by juries.
In the early period of American history, the right to a jury trial was not really considered as belonging to the criminal defendant. Essentially, it was a right that the public enjoyed, not the defendant. And as a result, criminal defendants were held to be not allowed to waive their right to a jury trial. That began to change in about the 1870s.
It primarily arose because the criminal justice system simply was unable to process all of the criminal charges that the government was bringing through the relatively more extensive, time-consuming process of the jury trial. Today, plea bargaining, rather than the jury trial, makes up the bulk of our criminal justice system. 97% of all federal convictions today are obtained through plea bargaining, not through jury trials.
The principle behind plea bargaining, then, is that the right to a trial belongs to the criminal defendant, just like a piece of property does, and that, in essence, the defendant can sell the jury trial right to the prosecutor in exchange for a lower charge.
I think where we are today is that this really can't be called a voluntary process, because you have criminal defendants who are being threatened with 20, 30, 40 years in prison. Who would possibly risk that when you could walk away with 2 years in prison?
One of the benefits to the plea bargaining system to the criminal defendant is that it allows the criminal defendant to get on with their life by accepting guilt for a lower offense without having to go through the complicated, expensive, and time-consuming process, and humiliating process, of a trial in front of a jury. If a criminal defendant is willing to give up that right in exchange for a lower sentence, then society should be okay with that. That also saves taxpayers money and relieves the system of a burden that might otherwise make it difficult to keep the society safe. It allows prosecutors to concentrate their efforts on high-level offenders and bring those to trial without having to bring every case to trial that involves a relatively minor offense.
There's a separate set of issues in terms of how you encourage certain defendants to testify against others. And in principle, you can certainly appreciate, the goal of wanting to encourage certain members of a criminal organization to give honest testimony against others. But in practice, what you see happening is the prosecutor essentially coercing defendants into giving testimony that the prosecutors want, whether it's true or not. On the whole, the Supreme Court has been perfectly willing to bless plea bargains. And you can understand why it's a difficult concept for the court to address, because exactly where the line is between coercive and voluntary pleas is a difficult question in principle.
All right. That was the video on the breakdown of what a plea bargain is. So imagine, if you will, a person being charged with a crime, goes before a judge. The judge first sets a bail for that person. The bail is here in California. They recently, I believe they recently changed the law, but the bails here in California are excessively high. They are meant to keep the person in jail. They know that people are not going to be able to pay these outrageous bail amounts. So the person gets remanded to jail. Uh, Remember now, they have not been convicted, but they are in fact incarcerated. None of this is new. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know about this stuff, but they may not know about the process. So they are not yet convicted, but we also in here in America have the you are guilty until you are proven innocent. But as of some years now, you are now guilty and proved until, what did I say? First time? No, so you are innocent until proven guilty is the old way of how it's supposed to be. But now in America, you are guilty until proven innocent. It's backwards here. So you're remanded into jail. You're in jail. You're in custody. You have this excessive bail. Depending on what your charge is, you depending on how, let's say, comfortable you are going to be while you are in there. If you are one of the ones who are a target, are easily provoked or easily picked on, then your stay there might not be as easy as somebody who isn't like that. I mean, jail's not fun, period, point blank, period, at all. It's not fun anyway, no matter who you are. But you're going to be staying in there till your next court date. Now you're missing work. You're missing out on family time. You're just missing out on life. And you feel and you know in your heart that you are innocent, but you're in custody. You can't do anything. So while the time, it may be a week, it may be 2 weeks, it may be a month, it may be a year before your next court date comes. Your lawyer, your public defender, most places, will come to you and say, hey, we've come up, me and the prosecutor have come up with this plea. If you take this now, you can get out of jail now, or if you want to take it to trial, then you're looking at 40 years. Now that person who's missing out on family time, missing out on work, missing out on birthdays, holidays, all these things, and he knows that he's innocent, but yet the price of being in jail outweighs the consequences in that person's mind of taking the plea. The plea looks a pleasure. The plea looks like it's going to work for them. It's a win-win. Well, I'll get out. I'm going to have to plead guilty to this. It's going to be on my record for the rest of my life, but I already been in here for a year. But if we take it to trial, then I'm going to get 40 years. What am I going to do? So that's how people end up taking the pleas. Then the judge even asks you, before you even say, yes, I agree to this plea, they asked you, do you feel like you have been coerced in any type of way? Do you feel like you have been threatened? Your family has been threatened? The judge actually asks you those questions. Do you believe that? Let's read this article here, and then I'll go ahead and get out of you guys' hair. Again, this is Shed Some Light. I am James Barjuda. I go by James Barjuda. But let's read this article. This is from Think, Opinion, Analysis, and Essays. Prisons are packed because prosecutors are coercing plea deals, and yes, it's totally legal. With coercive plea bargaining, prosecutors have ripped that right out of the criminal justice system. This article is by this person here. America is the most prosperous country in the history of the world. We excel in innovation and mass production. Now, now nowhere is that more true today than our criminal justice system, which features a streamlined process for transforming millions of suspects into convicted criminals quickly, effectively, and without the hassle of a constitutional prescribed jury trial. It's called coercive plea bargaining, and it's the secret sauce that helps us maintain the world's highest incarceration rate. According to the recent study from the Pew Research Center of the roughly 80,000 federal prosecutions initiated in 2018, just 2% went to trial. More than 97% of federal criminal convictions are obtained through plea bargainings, and the states are not far behind at 94%. Why are people so eager to confess their guilt instead of challenging the government to prove their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt to the satisfaction of unanimous jury? The answer is simple and stark. They're being coerced. They're being bullied into taking these pleas. Though physical torture remains off limits, American prosecutors are equipped with a fearsome array of tools they can use to extract confessions and discourage people from exercising their right to a jury trial. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Brooklyn 12, or it's Brooklyn 5. I know I'm getting the name wrong in the movie, but it's about 5 innocent young boys who happen to be playing in the park in New York. They got caught up in an instance where a woman had got raped. They had absolutely nothing to do with it, but this prosecutor, because she didn't want to do her due diligence, because she didn't want to go a step further into her duties, found people to convict. These innocent boys, the oldest of them were 16, the youngest was 13. If you see, man, I can't hope the name of the movie comes back to my mind. If you guys know the name of the movie, write it in the comments so that people can watch it. Yeah, these innocent young boys were coerced. They didn't even make it to a trial yet. They didn't even make it to a courtroom yet. But the police were telling them, oh, well, this guy lied on you and that guy lied on you, and none of them even knew each other. This goes on today in our judicial system. But nobody knows. Well, people might know about it, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody cares because, hey, if they're bad people, they're bad people. They deserve it. But we're finding out. If you stick with me here, we're finding out that innocent people are going to jail. All right, where'd I leave off? These tools include charge stacking. Charging more and more serious crimes than the conduct really merits, legislative order mandated minimum sentences, pre-trial detention with unfavorable bail, threats to investigate and indict friends or family members, and so-called trial penalty. With the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers calls the substantial difference between the sentence offered prior to the trial versus the sentence a defendant receives after a trial. Of coerced plea bargains, many problems. Two are particularly concerning. The first is false convictions. Though it was once believed that a confession is open in court, A guilty plea was proof positive of a person's guilt. Now we know that simply isn't true. Indeed, of the more than 300 people definitely exonerated by Innocent Project using DNA evidence, some 11% pleaded guilty to crimes they did not commit. Since 1989, the National Registry of Exonerations put the total number of 20% since 1989. But whatever the percentage figure, it is clear that the innocent people are routinely. It is clear that the innocent people are routinely coerced into pleading guilty to crimes that they did not commit. They know people are poor. They know that they don't have the money to get actual lawyers for themselves. They know that the public defender is loaded with so many cases that they can't give adequate defense under the law, which is another one of your amendments. So they're violating you in all different kind of ways. They didn't even really took you out to dinner. Forgive the joke. But let's go ahead and read this last little part here. Once again, this is Shed Some Light. Thank you for sticking in here. Despite the mounting evidence, however, the U.S. Supreme Court has steadfastly refused to police the line between permissible indictments and unconstitutional coercion. For example, in a notorious 1978 case called Borkenkickers versus Haynes, the defendant was accused of forging an $88 check and told that if he refused to take the 5-year plea offer, the prosecutor would re-indict him as a habitual offender, which would increase his maximum sentence from 10 years to the mandatory life in prison. On appeal, the Supreme Court found nothing problematic about using the threat of a life sentence to convince a defendant to accept a 5-year plea and allow the life sentence to stand, since Brookshire had refused the deal. Now, remember when I told you that the judges, that before they enter it, before they hit the gavel, they ask you, Mr. Such and Such, before I enter your plea, has anybody threatened you or any other ways coerced you to accept this plea? All right, you guys, let me go ahead and get out of here. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, share. I appreciate all you guys for doing that thus far. Y'all have a wonderful day. Peace. Oh.